The Jets' search for a quarterback seems to be in full swing. Multiple NFL insiders have linked the Jets to Kirk Cousins. Plus, ESPN's Rich Cimini says Aaron Rodgers departing in Florham Park means there's an increased chance Garrett Wilson sticks around long term. All of that and much more all coming up here on a Sunday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer, and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk Sunday, February 16th, 2025. A lot to get into today surrounding all things New York Jets. We will cover that and much more all here for you on NY Flight Jets Talk. We will be joined shortly by Robby Sabo, co-founder, co-owner of Jets X Factor, simulcasting this edition of NY Flight Jets Talk on my channel, as always, Connor Long on YouTube. NY Flight Jets Talk, both will come up. And then obviously the Jets X Factor YouTube channel. We'll have, like I said, we're having Robby Sabo on, co-founder, co-owner of Jets X Factor. And then obviously I write for Jets X Factor myself. Make sure you are subscribed to both of our channels. Some really exciting content, both on the Jets X Factor channel and, of course, right over here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Free way to contribute. Helps both of our channels grow significantly. A paid way to support the show that helps us a ton is gifting memberships. On my channel, NY Flight Jets Talk, we are running a membership raffle. Every membership you gift gives you a ticket into our raffle. We'll throw the ticker on down below. The prizes we are giving away this month include a Joe Klecko signed jersey, a Mark Gastineau signed jersey, a Bill Parcells signed photo, a free item from our merch store, and a channel emoji you get in there by gifting a membership or every $2.99 super chat. Any questions for Robby and I, who will be joining us shortly, throw them in the chat and we will be sure to get those. Let's say what's up. And then if you want to call into the show, by the way, also click the pinned comment at the top of the chat. Some really fun, exciting Jets news to get into today. Our guy Dakota is in the building. Dakota, good to see you in the chat. Appreciate your support as always. Caden in the house, channel member, channel moderator over here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Our guy BC in the building. Good to see you. R&R tuning in on Jets X Factor's YouTube channel. Good to see you. Appreciate you as always. Chris J, our guy, comes in with a $5 super chat. Boom. Jets. Chris, you're the best. Can't thank you enough. And another show, another day, you make a reference to my take on the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. We need your thoughts on the new Drake album. Real Music is back. Chris, I appreciate the $5. Appreciate all your support. I have yet to listen to the new Drake album. How about this, Chris? We're going to be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with draft analyst Cole Thompson. Right after the show ends, I'm going to go listen to the album, and then I'll give you my take. All right, Chris, I appreciate the $5. Appreciate, as always, a few more raffle tickets for you. Austrian Jet fan, who is in on our membership raffle, is in the building. Says, here we go. Austrian Jet fan, good to see you in the house. Sharon McLean in the building. Sharon, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate all your support. R&R says, sweet helmets. Appreciate you, my man. Appreciate your support as always. June, the GM. June, I think you got back to me, but hit me up after the show. I'll voice chat you on Discord. I'll get you through to set up all your channels, your channel for your show and all that. Appreciate you tuning in. Bill M in the house. Bill, good to see you. Appreciate your support as always. Italian Eddie Ralph in the building. Eddie, good to see you in the chat. Appreciate your support as always here on the program. Wow. Someone is feeling generous. Very, very generous on this Sunday afternoon. Austrian Jet fan, our number one Austrian Jet fans, wants 20 more raffle tickets. He gets a Jets chant. Jets, our number one Austrian Jet fan comes in here and he gives 20 channel memberships. A lot of names to read here. If you hear your name called, you're now a member. Thanks to Austrian Jet fan. Bill M, Emmanuel Home Cobe, Hennessy Heisman, our guy Chris Grasso, Dre Day, the Jets fan, Daniel Murphy, Adriano's World, Jets Pauly, Tay B, AD Pugnett, Luis Rivas, Boring Sober Guy, DLB, One Jets Arm, Johnny Boy, our guy Jake Asman, Big T Charlie, Jay Graves, Nick Shine, our guy The Nick Shine Show, Thomas Cross, A Zone S. You are all members thanks to Austrian Jet fan, who comes in and gives 20 memberships. Thanks so much for the 20. I cannot thank you enough for all your support here on the program. 20 more raffle tickets for you. You're the best. Can't thank you enough. That's the paid way to support. The free way that helps us grow just as much is smashing the like button, subscribe to the channel. 21 of you guys watching on YouTube on NY Flight Jets Talk, only 9 likes, guys. Please hit the like button. It's free and helps us grow significantly. Any questions, throw them in the chat. We'll get to those in a little. If you want to call into the show, click the pinned comment at the top of the chat. I guess where I'm going to start is Jeremy Fowler, obviously another NFL insider. The names are starting to add up on SportsCenter today. Alongside Rich Cimini a few days ago, linked Kirk Cousins is a serious possibility to the Jets. Now, look, if you guys have been listening to my shows recently, excuse me, you know I'm a big proponent of no Kirk Cousins under any circumstance with the New York Jets. I think by bringing in Kirk Cousins, that just indicates the Jets they're looking for someone cheap to get you through the season. Basically just punting on 2025 and saying we're going to look to try to get a franchise guy in 2026. Who cares about now? This is a tank year. Let's get through it. I was for now. People who said I think getting rid of Aaron Rodgers automatically means tankier. That's not the case because you just won 5 games with the guy. Bringing in Kirk Cousins, who had the worst touchdown to interception ratio last year, threw the most interceptions, who's almost more immobile than Aaron Rodgers, who's 37 years old, whose arm appeared broken last season after coming back from an Achilles injury. That is punting on 2025 for me. There are names that you could get for cheap on the market, not as cheap for Kirk Cousins, because if you were to get him, you get him on the vet minimum. You could pay a little more for someone, though, who you would be able to compete with next season. Well, Aaron Rodgers, I felt, gave the Jets the best chance to win. As you guys know, I was all for not bringing Aaron Rodgers back. That doesn't mean the season just goes down the drain and who cares next year? We're just going to tank. That is not the case. You're telling me if you signed Justin Fields, 1 year $8 million, 1 year $7 million for something like that, he gives you 7 starts. Tyrod Taylor gives you 10. It is not crazy to think you can go 10-7, 9-8. I'm not predicting that's going to happen, but it's certainly in the picture. I mean, look, Tyrod Taylor's the biggest problem with Tyrod Taylor throughout his entire career has been staying healthy. When he's on the field, he's a solid quarterback. His record is exactly 500 on the dot. I think he's 24-1. Look, he's not going to give you 17 starts. He gives you 6-7 starts. You can go 4-3, 3-3. It's not the craziest thing in the world. It really isn't. Because I think Tyrod Taylor's a solid quarterback. He's able to make the most. He's able to optimize situations when his supporting cast is piss poor. He's also able to, he's somewhat of an athlete. He's able to get out of the pocket and make plays. When it's 3rd and 4 and you need someone to take off and get you 4 yards for the first down, Tyrod Taylor could do just that for the Jets. He could do just that. He's an athlete. He has a nice arm. Doesn't turn the ball over. Is fun to watch. Is kind of a dual threat type guy. Another name to watch who could be exciting is Jameis Winston. I know a lot of people really like him for his personality, but he could be fun to watch in the sense, while he's going to throw a lot of interceptions, he's also going to throw a lot of touchdowns. So he's the type of personality that the New York media would love, and maybe I could see him kind of gelling with an Aaron Glenn type. He's in a free agent name to look out for. Another name I look out for, who Zach Rosenblatt mentioned as a trade target if the Jets really want to go big and try to somehow yield a franchise guy out of this entire search, Kyler Murray is an option if the Cardinals are interested in shopping him. You probably have to restructure his deal, but talk about someone who's top 10 in every metric. Dual threat type guy. You have to worry about running that read option with him and Brees Hall. You have to worry about now 2 guys out of the backfield. And then, depending who's in there, whether it's Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, one of those guys. He's a dual threat type guy, strong arm. The one concern was, him not watching enough tape, him not preparing for games. If the Cardinals are taking calls for Kyler Murray and they say, Darren Muji, I want the 7th overall pick in this year's draft, and then in exchange for Kyler Murray, I think you do it. Because I know a lot of people are going to go, wow, a top 10 pick for Kyler Murray who hasn't lived up to expectations as a number 1 overall pick. If the Cardinals are taking calls for him and that's what they're asking for, pay him. Because who at 7 are you realistically speaking, at pick number 7, who are you getting that has the potential to make a larger impact on the Jets than Kyler Murray? We all know that quarterback is the most important position in all of sports. And you have someone who's shown flashes of being a franchise guy, and he's consistently been a top 10 guy throughout his entire career. And you're saying, I would take Kyler Murray over Ted McMillan. I love Ted McMillan, though. I would take Kyler Murray over Mason Graham. I would take Kyler Murray over Will Johnson. I would take Kyler Murray over all those guys. Any questions for me, Robby Sabo, who would be joining us shortly? Throw them in the chat if you want to call one of the show. Click the pinned comment at the top of the chat. Let's see. I'll start with this comment from your appreciate you tuning in channel member here on NY Flight Jets Talk. I may be in the minority, but I don't think Kyler is that good. My question to you, if you were giving up pick 7, who are you getting with the 7th overall pick that is a sure thing that is going to come in and make a better impact, a larger impact, excuse me, than Kyler Murray has the potential to on the New York Jets? Because you're not finding that guy. You aren't. There's no one you're going to get at pick 7 in this year's NFL draft who has more value and has the potential to contribute to the franchise in a more significant manner than Kyler Murray. Show me that guy, please. Show me. Who is that guy? Who is he? Austrian Jet fan says we won't trade up for a quarterback. I hope they don't. I hope to God the Jets don't trade up for a quarterback. I love Cam Ward. I think he's the only legit quarterback, in my opinion, in this year's draft class. I don't think Shedeur Sanders. I have a second round grade on Shedeur Sanders. I just don't think Shedeur Sanders is all that good. I wouldn't give up 2 ones in a second for Cam Ward. I wouldn't. I don't think he's worth that. If he somehow falls there at 7, you run that card up to the podium and you take him. But I don't think it is the right move for the New York Jets to try to give up next year's one, a second rounder, and obviously pick 7 to go up to trade up for Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. I don't think it's worth it. Rusty Spooner in the building. I appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate your support on the program. Trade back in the draft and possibly out of the first, start our draft in the second draft. Will Howard, go from there. Murray sucks, to be honest. Point to one metric, point to something you've seen that Kyler Murray indicates that he sucks. He's been a top 10 quarterback throughout his entire career, every single season. So certainly doesn't suck. I'm gonna have to push back there. Start our draft in the second. Depends what you're gonna get. I've done some mock drafts where I trade back to like 34, but I pick up 2 firsts in the second. Like that is something that could be quite appealing to me. Question is, what are you getting in return to trade all the way back to the second? I really like Will Howard. If you could get him late day 2, early day 3, I just view him as someone who you can bring in. You can implement a pro level offensive scheme with him because that's what he was running at Ohio State with Chip Kelly as his offensive coordinator, someone who knows what it's like to win, someone who has a lot of experience. He's an athlete. I think he could fit Tanner Engstrand's, offensive mold, offensive scheme, if you will, in a great way. So Will Howard, I have a late day 2 grade on him. I think his ceiling's a top 10 starter really in this. Like I think here's my thing with Will Howard. I think his floor is the highest compared to, he might not have, for example, compare him to Jalen Milroe. They're supposed to go in like a similar. They're supposed to go. I have a day 3 grade on Jalen Milroe. A lot of people think he's going to go on day 2. Compare them to each other. For example, I think Jalen Milroe has the most upside among any draft prospect this year, but he also has the lowest floor. Will Howard doesn't have I don't think he's even close to the highest ceiling in the draft, but he has the highest floor. So if you want to go to a day 3, late day 2 quarterback, I think Will Howard's your best, security pick in the sense of you pretty much know what you're getting out of him. He has a high floor. Might have a lower ceiling compared to some of the other guys, but he has a high floor. I can guarantee you that with Will Howard, watching 3 of his games from Ohio State. Austrian Jet fan says AG builds trenches. I guess you're trying to indicate that the Jets are now most likely going to take a defensive lineman with the 7th overall pick. Depends who's on the board. Like Mike Green from Marshall, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M is a little rich for me just because I had Will Parkinson on who was down at the Senior Bowl. He was talking about it the other day. He has the traits to be such an elite player at the NFL level. The thing is, he didn't showcase it at Texas A&M. He wasn't all that productive. So that's why I think Shamar Stewart, pick like that, might be a little rich for the Jets. But Mike Green out of Marshall, who's just explosive, such an explosive edge rusher. Saw a lot of Bryce Huff comps. He's someone I don't think is too rich to take it. Pick 7 if you want to build up the trenches. Mason Graham is probably my number 2 player for the Jets to covet, realistically speaking, behind Ted McMillan. So if he's there, I think you got to take him. BC Murray won playoff appearance ever and got blown out. Okay, you think that's all on him though? They went in they went in. I understand. I think that was the team Cliff Kingsbury coached. They were 11-6, but that game wasn't all on him. They were playing a good football team that game. No, they played the Eagles that year. Cardinals playoff history. Like that wasn't all on him. But are you gonna forget about that? Are you gonna forget about the season where he basically was the top 5 quarterback? Or you just because he lost one game in the playoffs, which was it was a tough blowout here. Let me pull it up in 2022. Trying to find this. I'll let you know when I pull this up here. 2022. Lost wild card round. Who'd they play? I think it was the Eagles. Someone help me out here in the chat. Someone help me out who they played. NBC made a good point. Yeah, to be fair, the Cardinals are in a great organization. That's what I'm saying. Like we just because he lost that playoff game doesn't mean and got blown out. I'm not saying it was a good game from Kyler Murray. We just can't forget about the rest of his entire career. We can't. He was top 5 that year. He's been top 10 basically every season in his NFL career. He's been a top 10 quarterback. Yes. I take that. I would take that over trying to take a gamble on a Mason Graham, a Ted McMillan, someone like that. Because you know what you're getting in Kyler Murray. You don't know what you're getting in these unknown prospects. I'd rather develop my own player than an already flawed player. How is he flawed? He's a top 10 quarterback. And I hate comparing things to the Jets because the Jets floor, the floor is so low. When the bar is set so low when you want to compare, guys the Jets could potentially bring into former quarterbacks. But Kyler Murray, if he were to come in, he gets the potential to establish himself as one of the best quarterbacks in Jets history. Yeah, you're saying you want to take a gamble and trying to develop a guy when you have someone who showed flashes of being a franchise guy and is historically a top 10 quarterback in the NFL throughout his entire career. I don't get that. Caden, what round grade do you have on Dart? Late day 2 grade on Dart, Caden. I don't get all the round 1 hype. I think there's a chance the Jets take him at 7. I really do, which is unfortunate. Spielman's so high on him. I can see here in Darren Mushi trying to come in and, make a big hit year 1. I just don't think he's worth it. You can't, he doesn't know how to run a pro level offensive scheme. So many turnovers. Mechanics struggle under pressure. Tries to be Superman and make these crazy plays. Struggles to read defenses right after the snap. So late day 2 grade on Dart for me. Late round 2 grade, excuse me, on Dart. Where are we? Stanley. If the 49ers could find Brock Purdy with their last pick, it's possible for the Jets to find a franchise quarterback this year. However, it's unlikely. Stanley, there's a difference. The 49ers have Kyle Shanahan. The Jets have Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand. There's a difference there. There's a difference. Caden Will Howard's not getting taken in the second round. Try fourth, LOL. He's going to be taken on day 2. I never said second round. I said day 2. There's 2 rounds on day 2 of the NFL draft. Second round and third round. I think he's going to go in the early. He's going to go the mid to late third round, in my opinion. I just covered this. Yeah, Spielman said on this. He said on this podcast with Ryan Wilson, great friend of the show who we had on, that Spielman's very high on Jackson Dart. But again, let's keep in mind here, Ryan Wilson, who I had on the show, who detailed Spielman's roles, great friend of Spielman, podcast partner for over 2 years, basically said he's just going to be a sounding board for Darren Mushi. He's not going to make decisions. He's going to be a sounding board. It's not like a president of football ops role in the sense where he's calling the shots. He's just going to provide his input to Darren Mushi. Stanley, Jets are better off going with Tyrod as the bridge quarterback, draft a late round quarterback like Milroe, trade for Justin Fields, let them compete for the job. Justin Fields is a free agent, so you'd sign him. I'd say his market value is probably like $8 million a year. I'd take Justin Fields 1 year, $8 million. I think Fields and Tyrod with someone you draft and then Jordan Travis, quite frankly, compete for a roster spot. I think that's ideally the best scenario. What I think is going to happen, I think it's going to be Tyrod quarterback 1. I think they're going to draft someone, and I think Jordan Travis is going to be the third string. I think that's what's going to ultimately happen here. Keep the questions coming. We'll be sure to get to those. If you want to call into the show, click the pinned comment at the top of the chat. 54 of you guys watching across all platforms. 32 of you guys watching on NY Flight Jets Talk. On an NY Flight Jets Talk, only 13 likes, guys. Please hit the like button. It's completely free. Helps us grow significantly. Also hit subscribe on both Jets X Factor and NY Flight Jets Talk. Also free. Helps us grow significantly. Austrian Jet fan. Can't thank you enough for the 20 gifted memberships. That's 20 more raffle tickets for you. Where were we? Stanley, one of the Georgia guys, is a good pick if Graham isn't available at pick 7. I think you're talking, so there's a few. You could be talking about Michael Williams, the outside linebacker out of Georgia. You could be talking about Jalen Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia. You could be talking about Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. Among those 3 guys, I'd say I prefer Malachi Starks just because I think the Jets have been very vocal. The Jets, I think, need 3 to 4 new safeties next season. I do. Maybe Jalen Mills comes back for $3 million, but other than that, you're not looking at any starting safeties on the Jets roster right away next season because they're all free agents. So what I think could happen here, in this scenario, I would prefer to take Malachi Starks just for the overall positional value. And while some might say safety's a little rich, especially in the first round, let alone pick 7, look at what Aaron Glenn, if he had any say in personnel, look what they did. in Detroit his first year, taking two positions that no one takes in the first round, and linebacker, and quite frankly, a linebacker and running back, the two positions that nobody really takes in the first round, taking Jack Campbell and Jameer Gibbs, who've both developed into great players there. So maybe Aaron Glenn, Aaron Glenn builds his defense from the back end all the way from the safety all the way up to the defensive line. So I could see him being interested in Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. I'll tell you right now, I'm a big fan of Malachi Starks, watching a few of his games. So I would be completely on board if the Jets wanted to run Malachi Starks up to the podium with pick number 7 and they couldn't find anyone to trade back with. Um, Kyle, if he likes Hooker at all, he will grab him to compete with Tyrod. My question is, what is Hendon Hooker's trade value? I love Hendon Hooker. I've been big on. I think the Jets should go ahead and want to trade for Hendon Hooker. But what does his value look like? Is it a day 2 pick? Is it a day 3 pick? This is what I think a real package could look like for Hendon Hooker. The Jets have 2 6th-round picks next year. You send one of those picks to Detroit coupled with Jordan Travis for Hendon Hooker. That could be intriguing. I would do that in a heartbeat. I just think Hendon Hooker has a higher ceiling than Jordan Travis. He's fully healthy, and he knows this offensive system. You can implement this scheme with him, which I think is a very, very important factor as the Jets look at these quarterback options next season. I'm not saying for Hendon Hooker to come in and be a day 1 starter. I'm not saying that's the case at all under any circumstance. What I'm saying is you could bring him in, have somewhat of a quarterback competition with him, and see what you have. He's someone who could provide somewhat of a flair as a backup QB next season. I would love Hendon Hooker to somehow find his way into Florham Park. Number 1 Austrian Jet fan, right tackle, SWT. I don't know what you're saying there. Behind Moses, draft or sign one. If you're talking about right tackle, there's a ton of tackles in this year's draft class. Anaj Cornelius, the tackle out of Oregon, is someone I really like. If they want to go really high, even Kelvin Banks Jr. From Texas, if you want to go that high, I'm not a fan of that pick though at all. Just because if the Jets were to do that, too handsy, and I don't think I don't have a first round grade on any of the offensive tackles. I think Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks Jr. are eventually going to have to turn into guards at the next level. So yeah, I'm not interested in tackle in the first round. And Najee Cornelius, though, another one. Donovan Smith, the offensive tackle at Ohio State. If you want to go with that pick 42, you want to run that up as an offensive tackle, I'm okay with that. Thank you, Matthew, for clarifying swing tackle. Sorry, I thought swing tackle would just be ST. Yeah, swing tackle. I mean, you have a swing tackle in Carter Warren. He isn't great. I think you ultimately keep Carter Warren, though, on the roster, and he's the swing tackle next season. I think that's what's going to happen. Matthew says trade up for Cam Ward. Again, I went on. If you want to rewind on my opinion on that, go back to the top of the show. I just don't think it's worth it to trade up for Cam Ward. I don't. Dominic, here we go again. Aaron Glenn was one of my favorites in the 90s and seems real, but we need horses unless we get Fields, Stafford, or someone relevant. Yet another rebuilding year. Been a fan since 1980. Dominic, appreciate you tuning in, but how is this a rebuilding year by not bringing back Aaron Rodgers? There's more to the picture, but it's a lot to just say, oh my God, it's a rebuilding year. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers, someone you just won 5 games with, and you move off the guy you just won 5 games with who measured out to be a bottom 10 quarterback. Now it's a tank year. That just doesn't quite make sense to me. It doesn't. Stafford, I think he's going to go to the Giants. Justin Fields is someone you can sign at free agency, going to be 26 in March. He can provide some fun, some upside. I think Fields, this is what I've been vocal on. Fields and Tyrod battling now for QB1. One of them obviously being the backup, and Jordan Travis as the third string could be a great idea. Ultimately, what I think they're going to do is it's going to be Tyrod. You're going to draft someone, whether that's Kyle McCord, Will Howard, if you unfortunately potentially Jackson Dart in the first round. They'll be the rookie. Will be the backup. Maybe see them towards the end of the season. And then Jordan Travis is the third string. He's still? I don't even think he's still fully done rehabbing. I was talking to a few of the beat reporters yesterday, and I was talking to one of the beat reporters the other day, and they told me they spoke to some people in the building, and they said Jordan Travis, the rehab is so far behind. There's a chance he's not even ready for next season. And the fact also that it was so his rehab was going so slowly that he got so frustrated he just stopped showing up to the facility at times. So goes back to my original point of just you can't bank on anything out of Jordan Travis. You simply can't. Mizo 9 in the building. Yes, Will Howard, and have him sit for a year. I want a big quarterback. He's also a threat to run with a good arm. Yeah, Will Howard certainly on the taller side for being a quarterback. Like I said, he's a dual threat guy. Echoing what I just said, I like that. Most importantly for me, though, Mizo 9 is you're able to bring him in and you're able to implement a pro level offensive scheme because that's what he was running at Ohio State. He's not someone, for example, Jalen Milroe, who I think is a pure athlete. He's such a project because you basically have to take Jalen Milroe, the athlete, and teach him the quarterback position at the NFL level, which could require him sitting for over 2 seasons, for around 2 seasons. So that's the concern with Jalen Milroe there. So among the day 2, day 3 dart throws, so to speak, Will Howard's probably my favorite on that list. Guy the lane, train lane Kerner in the building. Jets have to draft Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, I really like, great acceleration, great yak guy, able to get up with his body, make some plays, traditional build, 6'6", 260 as a tight end. Tyler Warren at pick 7. Let me know what you guys think there. And for me, again, I've said this with a lot of guys, it depends who is on the board. If I'm picking between Ted McMillan or Tyler Warren, I'm going to go Ted McMillan. But if I'm picking between Tyler Warren and Will Johnson, I'm going to go Tyler Warren. Overall, for me, it depends on who is on the board when the Jets are when they're contemplating taking Tyler Warren or not. Matthew Cam Ward is QB1 last class trade up. That is not true at all. He was contemplating coming out last year, and he didn't because the NFL pretty much gave him a round 4 grade. That's the whole reason he didn't come out, Matthew. It's because the NFL pretty much gave him a round 4 grade and said, if you're going to come out, you're going to be probably selected in the 4th round, so you might as well just go back for a season. That's not true at all. June spitting some facts. We fans cannot assume we are rebuilding because we moved on from Let Muji and Aaron Glenn Cook. Exactly. Trust the football people now in the building to make football decisions. Trust them. And it's not tanking because you moved on from someone you just won 5 games with. And remember, half of those people who wanted Aaron Rodgers back were so vocal on midway through the season, I want to get rid of him. And then boom, he puts together 3 nice games at the end of the season against the Dolphins, the freaking Jaguars, and the Dolphins again in week 18. And you change your mind automatically. Oh, I want him back next year. Come on, give me a break here, guys. Give me a break. In fact, you wanted someone like this back after he was absolute crap for 14 weeks of the season, but you just remember the 3? And the recency bias of, the past few weeks, if you just pick and choose because you remember the week 18 game, you remember the game they took Miami to overtime, you guys remember the game they took, they beat Jacksonville, but you don't remember the 40-14 blowout loss where Aaron Rodgers threw 2 interceptions, couldn't recover a fumble, got sacked 1,000 times, and was taken out where Tyrod Taylor scored his 14 points. So it was really 40-0 that game because Aaron Rodgers didn't score those 14 points. That was Tyrod Taylor who came in and did that. Just tired of it. I'm tired of it. J Max, appreciate you tuning in. Jets need a starter at 7. Love Graham, but trade back and take Penn State wide receiver tight end. He's a starter, can block right after the catch, but deep tight end class. I don't think that should prohibit you from taking Warren. Take 2 tight ends in this year's draft. There's so many names, like you said, Luke Lachey, Elijah Arroyo, Harold Fannin, Mason Taylor, Tyler Warren, Colton Loveland, all these names at the tight end position. If the Jets really like them, take them at 7. The thing is, who are teams going to look at and want to trade up for? If you want to trade down, you got to find someone to trade down with. I think if the Jets are really in love with Tyler Warren, go and take him, in my opinion. That's what I think. Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. 58 of you in the building. 45 of you tuning in here on NY Flight Jets Talk, and only 18 likes. So please, on NY Flight Jets Talk, if you're one of the 45 people who have not liked the video yet, please hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, completely free. Helps us grow significantly. And then our membership raffle, Austrian Jet Fan gifted 20 at the top of the show. Tickers on down below. Prizes we're giving away for this month include Joe Klecko signed jersey, Mark Gastineau signed jersey, Bill Parcells signed photo, free item from the merch store, channel emoji. You could get in on that by gifting a membership, or every $2.99 super chat will get you a raffle ticket as well. Paid way to support the show. The free way, though, that helps just as much is smashing the like button, completely free, and making sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We're trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the start of the NFL draft. Please, 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 guys, helps us grow a lot. Keep the questions coming. We'll get to those if you want to call into the show. The pinned comment at the top of the chat. You guys are the best. NJ Lauren in the building. Lauren, good to see you. Appreciate you tuning in. This isn't a rebuilding year. The team has holes. Rodgers has 0 to do with the idea Rodgers can overcome a team's weaknesses. Was blown out last year. The offense couldn't score 20 points a game. I agree 1,000%. That goes to my whole point. Moving on from Rodgers does not indicate a tank. This is not an all-in year like the past 2 years was. The past 2 years with Robert Saleh was all in. Super Bowl or bust. Year one, we all know what happened. 4 plays in the season ended. Last year, won 5 games, and you fired the coach 5 games in. Simple as that. This is not an all-in year. Like you said, they have so many holes they haven't had in the past few years. You need an offensive lineman because the offensive line was a mess the past 2 seasons. But the offensive line is actually positive for once. You need 2 to 3 new tight ends. You need 2 to 3 new wide receivers. You need a few defensive linemen to rotate in and out. You need 3 new safeties. You need a few linebackers. This isn't the same team of 2023 and 2024. It's a completely different team. So the fact that people are, going crazy saying moving on from Aaron Rodgers is already punting on next year, that's insane. You just won, like I said, you just won 5 games with the guy. This isn't an all-in year. It's the right decision to pivot off a guy like him. Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like. Subscribe to the channel. Let's bring on our guest for today's show. Jets X Factor co-owner, Jets X Factor co-founder. It's our guy, Robby Sabo, here on the program. Robby, how are you?
Good. What's up, bud? What are we talking about here?
We were talking some Aaron Rodgers. We were talking some draft. NJ Lauren, this is the comment we were spoken about. This isn't a rebuilding year. The team has holes. Rodgers has zero to do with the idea Rodgers can overcome a team's weakness was blown out last year. The offense couldn't score 20 points a game. I guess that's where I'm going to start, Robby. The narrative of moving off of Aaron Rodgers right away is automatically, indicating that next season is a tank year. Do you think that's the case? Because I really don't see the logic behind that.
No, I don't think it's the case. I agree with you. It's not automatically a tank year. However, at the same time, I mean, listen, it's a repeat of 2009, basically.
Okay.
Favre retires before he goes to Mini, and Jets fans were more depressed during that offseason than ever before. They had the team. They were 8-3. Just beat Tennessee, the undefeated team in Tennessee. Favre gets hurt. We don't know about it. They collapse. Miami with Chad Pennington, who the Jets just stumped. Remember, when they got Favre, it was August. It was early August. They planned to go into 2008 with Pennington. But things happened in a hurry. Things changed quickly. With Woody, Mangini wasn't on board completely, I don't think. And it looked great. But, this week 17, Miami and Pennington come in, put the nail in the coffin of the Jets. They win the division. Jets go into that offseason not knowing a damn thing. Like, depressed, didn't know what was happening. Team was still talented, I think, like this team is talented. No, it's not a tank year, but I understand where they're coming from because opting to not go with Rodgers is intentionally lowering the bar of your roster talent as a whole. There's no way to dispute that.
Agreed 1,000%. But at the same time, is he worth the $37.5 million that you're going to owe him next season from what we saw last year? No. And the whole thing, my whole stance on Rodgers, I was very concise with the stance of if he is willing to become one of the lowest paid quarterbacks next season, and Tanner Engstrand, Darren Muji, and Aaron Glenn all sit down, Tanner Engstrand says, I think I'm able to implement my modern-day offensive scheme with Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback. Aaron Glenn is on board bringing him back. Same with Darren Muji. I was okay with it. But at the same time, even if Aaron Rodgers said he was willing to learn Tanner Engstrand's offensive scheme, doesn't mean Tanner Engstrand was, he was the right fit for that offense. Because let's be real, I think Tanner Engstrand is going to kind of come in and do what Ben Johnson and the Lions did a few years ago. Make the offense very modern, a lot of RPOs, a lot of play action. I don't think you could do that with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers couldn't play under center last year. All of the play actions last year from Aaron Rodgers were out of the pistol. Well, I don't think there's a better alternative next season at the same time. What was the ceiling with Aaron Rodgers?
What do you mean he couldn't play under center?
Did you see? There was a crazy statistic watching the games too. He barely went under center last year. The amount of times.
No, when the running game
all the play action
working,
was out of the pistol. All the play action was out of the pistol.
Well, no, when the running game wasn't working early in the year, that's when they moved and they said, okay, we got to adjust. We got to do something because the running game is not working under center. Go back to San Fran. Go back to Tennessee. They started the season under center a lot.
And they pivoted.
Yes. Pistol didn't start until I would say Downing, until I would say they really tried. They hit that skid. They had lost those 2 games and then they came out in this pistol and they tried to work a base offense, still putting the rushing concepts in there and really didn't work either. The big difference and when it started to click offensively is when they got Tyron out of there and they didn't have that weak anchor dragging the entire offense down. When Olu went to left and Moses was on the right, they didn't have a weak point. So I don't buy that. So and the Rodgers stuff, why would it not work with Engstrom? It's just such a watch the Niners game, watch Tennessee. To a fault, Rodgers stuck with the game plan. Rush on first down, nothing. Rush on second down, a yard. Third and long, constantly. They had more third and longs to begin the season than I could ever remember any team ever having. So I don't really buy the Engstrom Rodgers stuff. I understand Glenn and Muji's perspective of moving on and wanting to start and go a different avenue. I don't understand having already made that decision before going into it. And that's what it sounds like happened. And if that's the case, what I don't understand is the pro Rodgers people not worrying if this was a Woody decision or not.
Now, Robbie, my next question to you is, which route do you really see the Jets going? Because there doesn't seem to be, that leader. It's concise favorite. As of now, Tyrod Taylor seems to be the favorite, but it's not by a large margin. Like I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were like, both of us can rattle off 20 names for the quarterback job, and there's a chance none of those guys are the next quarterback, just given which route the Jets want to go. What do you think the Jets do? As of now, I think it's going to be something. Tyrod Taylor's your starter. You draft someone on day 2, day 3, a Will Howard, a Kyle McCord, a Tyler Shaw from Louisville, something like that. And then you have Jordan Travis waiting in the rafters as your third string type guy. What route do you think the Jets are going to go next season at the quarterback position?
I think they're going to draft a guy.
Okay.
I think they're going to draft a guy. And maybe Jackson Dart. Maybe they try to move up for Cam Ward. Maybe they love Tyrod enough to feel comfortable with him while going with a day 2 guy. I don't know. And by the way, with Jackson Dart, I know the consensus is you can't take him in the top 10 right now, but it's February. Things change very quickly, man. These guys shoot up, these quarterbacks.
He's already shooting.
What's that?
I said he's already shooting. Like when the season ended, we're talking about him. Have you gotten in on Dart yet? I watched
No, not yet.
Okay, so here's some of my main takeaways from Dart. I have a second round grade on him. I think that's the fair round. My main concerns with Dart is the offense that they were running at Ole Miss is quarterback friendly reads. That's not an NFL type offense. So Tanner Engstrand's basically I think if you draft Dart, no matter what, he's gonna probably have to sit for a full season. Maybe you get a few games out of him, but at the end of the year. But he's most likely overall going to have to pretty much sit for a full season to learn the offensive scheme. On the other hand, I noticed he was very, very slow to read defenses right after the snap. He's good mechanics when he has time, though. When he's under pressure, those mechanics go to waste. He tries to be Superman, makes these crazy plays, and it turns into turnovers. I think Dart in the second round for the Jets, I'd be on board with, but I think the first round is a reach.
Yeah, that would be troubling. I'm doing a Glenn thing right now about his defense. Okay. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to look at Dart. If he doesn't handle pressure well, that's troubling for sure. You talk about the offense. Yes, they scheme a lot of guys open, no question. That system that he's in down there. But here's my fear with Glenn and Muji. Muji and the Rodgers decision, it all wraps into one. I want them to remain flexible. The Rodgers thing was the obvious quote unquote decision. Sometimes not going the obvious route is the best route. If, in my opinion, Glenn would have been the perfect personality coach for Rodgers because he's confrontational. He confronts guys in a productive way. And I think Rodgers really responds to that and respects that. But again, it sounds like they went into it with having already made their minds up. And if that's the case, that's Woody still doing Woody things, and that's not good. But regardless, whichever direction they go in, my fear is they're not flexible, and Muji is taking the hard stance that, hey, we did it in Denver with Russell Wilson with the dead cap. We could do it here. And Glenn is taking that same hard stance with, hey, we traded away Stafford. We got Goff, who's not that great. Goff is not that great, folks. He's not.
No, they just have a lot of weapons. Like, you have two legit running backs you can run play action with. Like, that's the thing, Robbie.
That's my fear, that they're going in these hard defined routes where the ceiling is not that high. And the other thing on Rodgers, I disagree with 99.9% of people out there. I still think he has a lot left, and he's going to be a lot better next year. Archie Manning, there's a reason why he's not in the Hall of Fame, even though he had all the talent in the world, number 2 overall pick, because he was in a shit situation. Like football, you can't, I don't care who you are, even Mahomes. You put Mahomes on that Jets roster, you might get 6-7 wins. That's just the way it is. That's how poorly coached they were.
They were poorly coached, for sure. But again, at the same time, Rodgers was not good last season. That's the whole thing. Like, I'm not denying
No,
I'm not. Yeah,
absolutely, he wasn't good. But like, it's the it's the Jets fans wanting hope and a fresh start, and to envision that and to feel that is to feel good about the future, and to feel that the only way to feel that is if Rodgers is not involved anymore. And I think that's what ticks me off the most, that people just they can't get over that. They can't remove that from the equation.
I understand where you're coming from. I just wanted to go back to the point you made about the way Jared Goff kind of fits into the Detroit's offensive scheme. I
Mhm.
mentioned the two running backs there, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. The way you're able to run the play action with both those guys. Brees Hall is someone who is significantly underutilized, in my opinion, with the Jets last season. They couldn't find any ways to, because Brees Hall, he struggles with vision. That was one concern of him coming out of the draft as a prospect, and he showed that his, second year, his first full season
He
in the
doesn't hit the
league.
hole. He doesn't hit the hole hard.
Yeah. When he's in space, getting him in space is the hardest part. Well, once he's in space, I think he's a very elusive running back. So how
He's
can the
tremendous.
how can the Jets potentially try to, scheme Brees Hall up to get in space and make plays like the Lions have done with Jahmyr Gibbs?
First philosophy, coach philosophy.
Mm.
Brees not playing is Salah. It's how many times have Jets fans complained about Quinnen not getting enough snaps? It's because of the hard-lined, non-versatile way of thinking where you got to rotate these guys that they're on a schedule, and there's no two buts about it. So it depends on what the personnel is in terms of scheming them open. Brees also has to, and from a Jets fan and media perspective, it's okay to say guys like Brees and Garrett have to put their big boy pants on, because that is what Glenn is going to tell them as well. And, enough of the covering these guys with blankets. The way to do it is what Glenn, and this is what I'm hopeful about Glenn, his leadership. I think what's going to define him is if he plays to today's modern rules as opposed to Bowles or Rex or Salah, where they were too conservative offensively. And, that's the reason why Zach had more wins than Rodgers. They were conservative offensively, tighter to the chest because the defense played well. With Rodgers, defense was shit, so they had to open it up and go crazy. If Glenn plays to the modern rules, I think he's going to be a great coach because his leadership is there and he's going to challenge Garrett Wilson. If Glenn was coaching when Garrett flipped on the sidelines in Miami, he would have been benched.
That yesterday.
He would have been benched.
Yep,
and that's the way it has to be. Like,
there was no control over the locker room at that point. That's why he didn't get benched.
There has to be consequences. These guys have been walking around with free range way too much. There has to be walking on eggshells, and there has to be an importance that every move you make affects the guy next to you. And that is my hope with Glenn, that he brings.
Robby, kind of transition back over now to the quarterback position. Kirk Cousins, unfortunately, is a name that I keep hearing more and more of from all these different NFL insiders. Now, what we spoke about, how we both agree that moving on from Rodgers is not punting on 2025. I think signing Kirk Cousins for $15 million is punting on 2025. Just because that shows me that the Jets are looking to go a cheap route, get someone in there to get to 2026. Kirk Cousins I think he's worse at this point in his career than Aaron Rodgers is. Talk about someone who's 37 years old, who's more immobile than Aaron Rodgers was last year. Arm appeared shot.
But that's what you're looking at. But that's what you're looking at. Like, you're not going to get anyone better than Rodgers.
And I'm not saying get someone better than Rodgers. I'm saying there are more available options, in my opinion, several that I would take over Kirk Cousins, in my opinion. Like
who? Throw some names out there.
So I think Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor, among all the options, I think is the best quarterback. The problem is you're not getting 17 games out of him. I think you get 7 to 8 starts out of him in a season. So then you look to backup options. I think trying to orchestrate a trade, a few day 3 picks for Malik Willis, a 26-year-old who showed some flashes as Jordan Love's backup last season, could be an exciting route to take. Trying to sign Justin Fields, the problem is he's going to be expensive. So then you look over to more veterans. Andy Dalton you can get for $2 million probably next season. Marcus Mariota you could get for $2 million. Guys who are cheap, who I think have more potential to, at least be exciting, who can move compared to Kirk Cousins, whose arm was shot, cannot move, threw so many interceptions last year. Compared to you bringing a Marcus Mariota and Andy Dalton, they're not going to turn over the ball as much. They're able to get out of the pocket. They're able to make plays, and their arm isn't broken.
Yeah, I don't see much difference, to be honest.
Okay.
Cousins, again, goes back to the Rodgers discussion with coaching. He was still fine with O'Connell right before the Achilles, and suddenly he shits the bed. Why did he get sprinkled with magical pixie dust? That makes you a bad quarterback. No, he went to a team with Raheem Morris as the head coach, a defensive mind who doesn't want his quarterback taking as many chances as O'Connell, and I think that's a major factor. So I hear you, but I don't see much of a difference between Cousins and the other guys, to be honest. Especially coming off the Achilles. I mean, that first year back from an Achilles is way different than the second year. I mean, let's be honest.
So are you saying, like, for example, also a year removed from the Achilles, also, you get older after that. Like Kirk Cousins, someone who I think is going to be 38. He's going to turn 38, I think, during next season. So he's definitely no spring chicken when it comes from an age perspective. I'm going to pull up this comment here from.
This is a different world. Like older quarterbacks can play in this world because it's flag football. It's not the way it used to be 20 years ago. Cousins. Listen, I'm not advocating for Cousins. He doesn't excite me. Don't get me wrong. I just don't like throwing names out there like Malik Willis and who else did you throw out there? Fields.
I said the problem is Fields I think is going to be too expensive, and I don't think the Jets are going to be willing to pay $10 million for one season of Justin Fields.
If it comes down between Cousins and Fields, Cousins could make so many more throws than Fields can and run an offense so much better. The thing that
but Fields is more of a dual threat guy. He's also 25 years old who has more upside.
But he doesn't know. There's so many issues. You think Garrett's upset with Rodgers? Wait for Fields. I mean, the
thing is he has a relationship with Fields, which
it doesn't matter.
Could play somewhat of a role.
It doesn't matter. Like this is the thing. I could see Glenn being interested in Fields on a 1-year deal where he tries to mold the offense around him and tries to work it like Philly, like Baltimore. Okay. Something in the beginning you said, Dart not running an NFL offense, so to speak. That's sort of, not totally, but sort of thrown out the window in today's NFL, where a lot of teams aren't running NFL offenses. This Philly championship is really the first time where it's really crystallized, where a non-classical NFL pro-style offense won the title, if you think about it. They weren't crazy passing yards team. They rushed the ball like nuts, and it worked, and they got it done with defense too. That's my other hope, that the league starts becoming more defensive again, because it'll fit Glenn and me personally. I'm a defensive coach and former safety, so I love that stuff.
I'm going to pull up this comment here by Jack Dooley. Says, would you take Carr over Kirk? Robbie, thoughts on this comment here? Carr's someone who they were obviously considering before going the Rodgers route. Again, Carr's a few years younger than Kirk. Carr's 33. However, again, he's someone who is not all that appealing. I think in New Orleans, they're basically just going to blow that team up in flames and win 2 games next season. And Spencer Rattler is going to try to start all 17 games for them. Maybe they sign someone in free agency. The thing with Kirk Cousins, another thing I wanted to mention is there's no guarantee that they're automatically just going to release him. Like there's a chance, but you think it's a sure thing that they're releasing Kirk Cousins in Atlanta?
I forget what the contractual situation is specifically, but probably. Because there's a certain deadline where they don't want it to hit. But I forget exactly
what 3 days into the new league year, I think it is.
Yeah, so I think so. And with New Orleans, yeah, they're in a bad situation with Carr too. But again, I mean, it depends on how great Kellen Moore is at his job. If he's the real deal and, he turns out to be a great head coach, they could be a situation just like Denver this past year. It's in other words, the doom and gloom about the cap and the aging quarterbacks and all that stuff, there's no patterns. It all depends on the coaching going into that next season. That's my whole takeaway. And again, I understand wanting to move on from Rodgers, especially because of the attention that is not his fault. I think a lot is made about him being a teammate and missing practice, which is just overrated and ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But there is something to that effect where his presence brings a lot more onto the team and onto the situation. And I understand them not wanting that. But I don't understand going into the meeting having already made up your mind. And that's the thing that really, I think people are overlooking right now.
Let's go back to another comment from Jack. Says Garrett, Ted McMillan, and Tim Patrick, plus maybe one more, doesn't seem completely awful to me as a wide receiver room. Maybe Corley becomes at least playable too. Robbie, I remember talking to you during the season, and you said your whole thing with Corley is they didn't find a way to utilize him. They didn't get him in the right playbook type. How do you think Tanner Engstrand could come in as the offensive coordinator and really utilize Malachi Corley? Maybe do something a comp I made when they hired Tanner Engstrand is look how the Lions utilized Jamison Williams and created plays for him on those RPO, quick pass type plays. Maybe Malachi Corley could do the same thing, being known as the Yak King coming out of college and being able to really extend plays as a receiver, collect those yards after catch.
Yeah, it's a good point, but I would rephrase it this way. Look at how the Lions challenged Jamison Williams. They didn't hand him the role right away.
They made him work for it. Yeah, 1,000%.
They made him work for it. They made him put his big boy pants on. So this utilizing Corley, what has he done to deserve that? Nothing.
Drop the ball at the goal line against Houston.
The question needs to be, what does Glenn and Engstrom need to do to challenge Corley? So, put your business suit on and get to work, Malachi.
Jack comes back in and says, what are your thoughts on the report that Spielman is very high on Dart? Robbie Samini put out one of those, multi-point articles. One of the things that Garrett, the chances of him sticking around increased after Rodgers gone. The next one is Spielman very high on Dart from his one of his podcasts with the first pick with Ryan Wilson, who we actually had on the show. Ryan was very vocal, though, after talking to Rick, how Rick isn't going to make these big decisions. He's basically going to be what he described as a sounding board for Darren Muji and provide his input. So that's the main difference why he's titled, for example, senior football advisor compared to president of football operations, where he's actually playing a pivoted role in calling the shots. Do you think how much do you think Spielman's input is really going to affect which route Darren Muji goes in almost all football decisions?
Less than normal. Especially because it feels like Glenn is the top of the hierarchy guy, which is very interesting. The one question I had coming from the introductory press conference is, okay, you guys are both reporting to Woody, head coach and GM, like the old days with Rex and Idzik and Rex and Mikey T and Mangini and Mikey T, that's fine. But you guys are going to disagree on players. And when you disagree, who's the tiebreaker? That's what I want to know. Like, you're going to preach that it's a team decision, and I get it. I would do that too, but who's the tiebreaker? I would say Glenn is that guy. So I'd say Spielman would have less of an impact. In terms of the rumor, I don't put any stock into it, to be honest, because whether the Jets are interested in a quarterback in the draft or not doesn't matter much right now. What they want is the NFL world to believe they are interested, because that keeps them mysterious and keeps options open. All the reports last year had the Jets taken Bowers, and look what happened. So I don't put very much stock into it.
Kelvin Joseph in the building. I'm big on Will Howard. Y'all thoughts? Robbie, I watched a little of Will Howard again. What I said is he's athletic. He ran a pro level offensive system with Ohio State. He's someone I have a day 2 grade on. I think he's going to go in the 3rd round. I think the Jets are going to take a quarterback somewhere in this year's draft. Will Howard, I think, is probably my number 1 option if you want to wait until late round 2, early round 3 to make that decision. I'm okay going with Will Howard. He's a winner. One concern though, he's 24 years old, so he's going to be on the older side entering the NFL, but a lot of experience, knows what it's like to winning the national championship, and ran a pro level offensive scheme with Chip Kelly as his offensive coordinator at Ohio State.
Yeah, Will Howard intrigues me. He completed a lot of passes against Notre Dame in that title game. Solid, did a good job, but it wasn't as impressive as many people believe, because Ohio State just dominated Notre Dame in the trenches, and no one even came close to sniffing Howard in the pocket, not even once. So I really have to look at Howard off the cuff. I'd say maybe, I don't know. He didn't overly impress me. I'll say that.
June, the GM in the building. Mr. Sabo, would you agree that the Jets need to play a run-heavy type of offense to establish an identity? We have weapons at running back like the Eagles that will open up the play action for whoever's quarterback.
No, I don't. I think thinking about run-heavy, pass-heavy, this and that, I think thinking about that is the wrong move. You go into it in a versatile way with your personnel in August, and you take it on a week-by-week basis. And through that experience, you figure out who you are and what you do well. So the first quarter of the season, especially with a new scheme, you kind of have to figure it out, and you base your tendencies based on the opponent that week. It's the exact opposite of what we've seen in Jets land, especially recently with Saleh. He came over 2001, was not shy about the Legion of Boom defense, cover 3, cover 4 quarters, 4-man rush, not much blitzing, turned out to be that way. And he was not shy about the Kyle Shanahan offense, talked about it glowingly with LaFleur coming over to run it. Don't do that. No, that's inflexible. You have to be flexible in today's league, and you have to be a chameleon, and you have to be willing to change it up. I was just talking about Philly, how they're such an outlier for winning the title, being a heavy rush team, defense. Hurts, who, he's got a good arm, and I like Hurts on a personal level, the way his quiet nature and how he competes and leads.
Yeah.
But that's the outlier. That's the team that usually doesn't win the Super Bowl, the ground and pound team. Rex could never figure that out after the rules really started to change while he was coaching the Jets. And the Jets as an organization haven't figured that out. Hopefully Glenn, working under Campbell alongside Ben Johnson, has figured it out, and hopefully Engstrand goes into it with a clean slate.
Robbie, how much of you think who the quarterback is affect? I know you mentioned, playing
100%.
Okay, that's what I was going to say, because I think if, for example, Justin Fields is your week 1 starter for the Jets, I think then that allows you to switch more over to a run-heavy offense, because Justin Fields is someone who can beat you with his feet.
And that's why Rodgers still being here wouldn't have mattered. Like, it's the great play callers, Andy Reid, the great guys who run their scheme, not the frauds, the one-and-dones, like the Salehs. Those are the guys who bend and are versatile and based on personnel. So to answer your question, sorry for interrupting, but yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because Justin Fields coming a guy who could beat you with his feet, then you're going to probably want to transition over to a more run-heavy offense compared to, let's say you send Kirk Cousins for the vet minimum. I mean, you can't.
It's completely
he's
different.
Not a dual threat. Exactly.
It's completely different offense. And if you go the Fields route, which I could see Glenn having some intrigue in, Garrett's as good as gone if that happens, and I'm cool with that.
Comes?
What's that?
You said if Fields is the starter, you think?
Yeah, I would bet any money. If Fields plays the whole year and is a starter, I think Garrett's gonna.
What do you get for Garrett though? I've said 2-1s is a fair asking price.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair, but it's Fields. I think Glenn would be intrigued. With Fields, he'd have some intrigue there to run that style of offense, but I hope he doesn't, because I feel like he'd be force feeding it. And if you do run that style offense with Fields for a year and really gamble, then you'd want your backup to be similar. And that's very difficult. Baltimore nailed it down with Hundley.
Tyrod though, like Tyrod's still somewhat of an athlete.
He used to be. Like, no, it's completely. He's a pocket guy. He's a pocket. He can't run
He can move though. Like he can get you 4 yards in 3rd and 4.
We can move, but we're talking zone reads, read options, QB powers.
That's Hendon Hooker then. Like that's if you were to go out and try to make a trade for Hendon Hooker
or Fields.
Well, no, I'm saying you said the backup too. So like, let's say Fields is the starter, and you
gotcha.
Trade for Hendon Hooker. Then
I don't even know if Hooker's that. It's the closest thing. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So another thing I wanted to say, you mentioned potentially trying to trade Garrett Wilson if he's not happy for the quarterback situation. Breece Hall, I think like the chances of him potentially trying to get a second contract here are slim. Could you see Darren Muji trying to come in, Aaron Glenn? Obviously they just moved on from Rodgers, but trying to make another big statement like, hey, no one's job here is safe. I want a draft day deal, trade Breece Hall for a 2nd and a 5th. Could you see them trying to work something out for that?
I do, and I hope it happens.
Oh, wow.
I hope not Breece specifically, but I hope they trade one of the players no one is expecting them to trade, because it sends a message to the entire locker room.
No one's job is safe. Exactly.
It sends a message. It shakes things up. And screw the fan base on Twitter, man. Like the whole, nothing made me more sick this year than the Rodgers versus Garrett stuff. It made me just want to vomit all over the place. Like if these guys are fighting and they're giving ultimatums, see ya to both of them. Bye to both of them. I've heard so many Jets fans. If it comes down to Garrett or Rodgers, I'm taking Garrett. In my world, if it comes down to both of them, see ya to both of them. Like, don't let the door hit you on the ass. So,
okay.
I hope they make a big trade, honestly, because it's authoritative and it sends a message.
Yeah, my thing with my whole thing with Breece Hall is I love Breece Hall. I have a Breece Hall jersey. I know a lot of last season wasn't on him, but he really couldn't find a way to get anything going. Still showed some signs of that lingering knee injury from his rookie season. Talking about someone who was a second round pick. I
Yeah.
mean, you tell me a second and a fifth rounder for Breece Hall. I'm at least gonna listen to that. Like, I'm gonna have to if I had to trade one of those four guys, I would trade Breece Hall just because I think while you would be selling somewhat low on him based on what we saw last season, I still want to see what Jermaine could do coming off the Achilles injury because he had a great sophomore campaign before he suffered that injury in week 2, obviously of this past season. I want to see what he could do. Sauce Gardner, I'm not throwing away talent like Sauce Gardner. Even if someone calls me says 2-1s for Sauce, I want to keep that. I'm talking about someone who was a first team All Pro both of his first 2 seasons in the league. Like I don't think you just throw that talent out the door. What are your thoughts on people saying you want to come in and try to make a statement by trading Sauce Gardner after he had a down season?
No, you don't throw anything away. But my point is, you don't label anybody as untouchable. If someone's interested in Sauce and is willing to talk and offer the world, you listen. You don't immediately hang up. And I think that's the mindset that needs to be shouted across the room, not only within the Jets organization, but within the Jets fan base, honestly.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, Robby Sabo, Connor Long here with you on NY Flight Chats. Talking to wrap up here soon. So any final questions you want to get in the chat, we'll get to those soon. JMax99 says Jets had a great D-line. Then we got rid of Huff, Quinton Jefferson, JFM, and losing JJ. They need to rebuild the defensive line, draft quarterback, safety, DB, and tight end. Quarterback, maybe I'm not taking a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, though. That's for sure. Safeties, I've been very vocal on. I think you need to get 2 safeties at any point in this year's draft. You need to completely revamp that room. Darian Porter from Iowa is a cornerback if you want to go that route to look for to kind of maybe help replace DJ Reed. I think Eccles comes back, though, something like 2 for 10, 2 for 8, something 1 for 5, something like that. And then tight end, another position, Robby. I think you got to draft 2 guys, whether it's depending on who's the board, making a big move and trying to take Tyler Warren with the 7th overall pick. Someone, great yards after the catch, able to block, 6'6", 260, traditional tight end build, or even looking in the later rounds since it's such a deep overall tight end class, whether it's Harold Fannin in the 3rd round from Bowling Green, Elijah Arroyo, 6'5", 250 from Miami,
it's
Luke
deep.
Lachey.
Receiver and tight end are deep every year because that's football these days. There's so many passing yards that they're going to be deep, both those positions.
Let's see. Matthew says if you take Ward as a prospect now, he's a QB1 over the prospects last year's class. Yeah, if you take him a younger Bo Nix, he's in the 1st round pick. Come on, Connor. Matthew, I just said he didn't come out last year because if he were to come out, Robby, he would have been a day 2 or a day 3 guy. That's basically
what are you talking about?
Cam Ward. All I said, Matthew, was if he came out last year, he would have been a day 2 or day 3 guy. You said if he came out last year, he would have been the QB1 last year's class. There's a reason he didn't come out. The NFL, his agents, his team, whatever, basically told him if you come out, you're going to be a day 2, day 3 guy. I'm basically going to formulate this comment into Robby. Do you think it's worth giving up this year's 1, another 1, and a 2 to try to go up and get Cam Ward? Personally, I don't think it's worth it. I think he's the best quarterback in this year's class, which really isn't saying much. He's the only one I actually have a 1st round grade on. I know Shadur is obviously going to probably go in the top 3. I don't have a 1st round grade on Shadur, though. I don't think he's all that special. So while Cam Ward is my top quarterback in this year's class, which isn't really saying much just given how low the bar is set, I'm not giving up multiple 1st rounders and a 2nd rounder to try to trade up and get him. I think next year is the year where you wait to try to get your franchise guy. How deep the class is: Carson Beck going back to school, Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, all the guys next year. Like I think you wait till next year to try to make a move at your franchise guy.
Yeah, the quarterbacks, I'm not – listen, I'll put a caveat to this. I haven't really dug into Cam Ward too much yet, but I'm not too impressed. It is a weak QB draft. There could be guys that they like, and there better be guys they like based on making the decision on Rodgers. And that's one of the reasons why I thought keeping Rodgers was the right move. If he was – as long as he played ball and agreed to everything Glenn laid out and agreed to a massive pay cut. If he agreed to a massive pay cut, it would have been cheaper to keep him as opposed to not keeping him. Like, what are we doing? So, and he'd be a net positive if you drafted QB, in round 2. To call any Super Bowl winning quarterback, a bad leader is just foolishness. So, I don't know, man. It's no, I'm with you though. I wouldn't trade up for Cam Ward right now. Caveat though, like I still have to look into him. Dark too. Dart's interesting, man. How far do you think he's going to shoot up right now?
I'm not even joking, Robbie. I think there's a strong chance the Jets
Top
take him
10?
at 7. Again, he's not worth it. I'm just saying that he's not a top 10 pick in my eye. He's a second rounder.
So many of these quarterbacks aren't worth it, quote unquote. That's what it's become since the Sam Bradford draft. What was it, 2009, 2010? I think 2010 or 2011. And they changed the way the salaries are slotted. These quarterbacks are lotto tickets, and these GMs view them as lotto tickets. Trey Lance and San Fran, oh, it didn't work out. All right, let's get rid of them. And we got Purdy. Why? Because Shanahan knows how to coach. Knicks with Denver. Would I want Knicks on the Jets right now? Not with Salah. He would not have worked out. He would have busted. Zach Wilson, everyone blames Douglas for missing out on Wilson. Yeah, I mean, that ultimately falls on Douglas, but it's not the crippler it used to be. The way these salaries are slotted, that's why. It used to be in the old days where you had to agree, where there was no slot salaries, and you had to agree to a contract before you drafted the guy because you were worried you wouldn't get a contract done, and the money was massive and the guaranteed money was massive. These guys wouldn't be drafted as high. So you got to understand, like a lot of these fans, these QB picks, they shoot up, they go to places they don't deserve because of the new system.
So I guess you said you haven't gotten too far into Dart though. If you had to pick, I gave my projection. If you had to pick, where do you think he's going to go?
Yeah, I would say he's going to.
He's already shooting, and
he's going to go in the first round. I think it happens every year.
It's concerning. Like, the thing, yeah, go ahead. Every year. Exactly. There's always that quarterback who just shoots up. Here's the thing. One. Yeah, at least one. Normally, it's something I noticed. Normally, it's like 2 weeks before the draft, like 2 weeks before the draft when they shoot up. Now we're talking about someone who, right after the Senior Bowl, boom, shoots up. Now we're talking about him as a really a top 10 guy. So it's crazy to think. Like I said, I wouldn't take him. The thing is, Robbie, this is a risk for Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn if they want to go ahead and make this decision. Just because, let's say you try to take Jackson Dart now with the 7th overall pick, try to find your franchise guy. You have to try to make something out of him for at least 2 to 3 years. He doesn't work out. That's your whole regime. And I think that's a really risky pick for the Jets, rather waiting next year where I think it's quarterback galore.
Again, that's why you keep Rodgers. I don't get it. Keep Rodgers for a year, get him to a massive pay cut. It'll be cheap as hell this year. You have more cap space. Let him go for a year, draft a young guy, let him be around Rodgers, see how he operates. I just hope I'm cool with it as long as it was a Glenn and Muji decision. I'm concerned it wasn't. That's my pause. But I don't know where they go. It'll be interesting. But if I had to guess, gun to my head, I would say they're gonna draft a guy one way or another.
We'll end with this comment here from our guy Jack Dooley. What route do we go right tackle if Morgan Moses blocks? I'd like to resign him. I just don't know what other options are in free agency besides Campbell. I think they'll re-sign him, Robbie. I want him back, but I want him as a backup next season. That's where I want him back as a backup. I want them to draft a guy, sign a guy. Dan Skipper's a free agent. He was the 6th offensive lineman in Detroit with the Lions. Maybe they throw something at him. A deep tackle class overall. I'm not going tackle in the first round, Robbie, because the two guys advertised as tackles, and Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas, who is very, very handsy, and Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU. I think there's a chance both of them are going to have to transition into guards at the next level. So I'm not touching either one of those guys in the top 10, especially. Maybe top 20, something like that, but not in the top 10. Tackles open up as you get later. Ariante Urser, tackle to look out for. Najee Cornelius, tackle out of Oregon. Josh Connerly, if you want to go at the top of the second round. Just Grace Abel, who might be there from North Dakota State, who skyrocketed up boards after the Senior Bowl. I think Morgan Moses comes back because he's a leader, but I don't particularly want him to have the weight on him to start 17 games next season, because I just don't think he could do it at this stage of his career.
Yeah, and Moses too. I don't know, man. Based on O-line needs across the league, it's tough to get him back as a backup. The only way to do it is if you draft a guy and he starts on day one, most likely. And also Sherwood. I don't know. It's going to be tough to bring back Sherwood and have Sherwood and Quincy be the starters. They're both really light linebackers. And
who knows if Sherwood's going to want to come back, though? I could see him trying to follow Olbrich to Atlanta.
Sure, it could happen. But regardless, it's like if I'm Glenn, I'm looking for a much heavier guy to play alongside Quincy, or you trade Quincy, get Sherwood back, and get a heavier guy next to Sherwood. Because you look at that defensive film, there were so few times where the linebackers filled aggressively at the line, filled and spilled and did the right thing like a Bart Scott did. So, because they had Campbell, Glenn in Detroit playing middle linebacker, it's going to be tough to see Sherwood back.
Appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Completely free. Helps both Jets X Factor and NY Flight Jets Talk grow significantly. So please do that. Over 123 of you guys tuning in live. So like, share, and subscribe. Like I said, completely free. Helps us grow significantly. Robby, super great to have you on. I mean, last time we spoke here on the pod, it was August. We were doing the 53-man roster predictions. We were riding sky high after the last preseason game, trying to go into San Francisco. Got to win. Little did we know, Robby, it was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, once they came out in San Fran, it was pretty obvious.
And you were there too, right?
Oh, yeah. I was there, and it was pretty obvious. They just, they were getting beat up in the trenches, like taken out to the woodshed and paddled over and over. It was awful. It was ugly. They beat Tennessee. Fortunately, didn't look good to start. And by the way, this brings up something. They had a good D line last year, a lot better than this year, obviously.
Douglas decimated it.
Well, Douglas or Woody?
So both of them. Really, the thing is, Douglas. When do you think Douglas lost power, though? That's the whole thing.
When
they took Zach?
Last year.
Last January.
Yeah, when his assistant was the
Rex Hogan and Chad Alexander.
When Rex Hogan was X.
And Alexander, the director of pro personnel, who just got an interview for the Jaguars GM job, and Woody basically didn't. The whole thing was Woody didn't let Douglas replace them, correct?
If you think about it, Rodgers played 2 seasons with the Jets. One, he didn't play with the Achilles. The other one, he played under something different, not the regime he signed up for, Saleh and Douglas. It's so crazy how it worked out.
It was a variant, yep.
But okay, the D-line, the point I was making, the D-line, good D-line in terms of pass rushing. Run defense wasn't that great still. Like, they didn't have balance. Al Woods really made a difference until he got hurt. And once he got hurt, they were getting...
was that week 4? I think that was week 3 or week 4, 2023 season. It was early.
I thought it was like mid, but yeah, it could have been earlier.
It was the Broncos game. I remember that.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So the point is that balance. I think Glenn's going to look for that balance, and JFM obviously was good against the run too. I wouldn't say it was elite against the run. It was probably a little below average, but I think it was more based on mentality than anything. But your point still holds true. Compared to last year, or compared to this year, last year's D-line was worlds ahead.
For sure. Robby, appreciate you hopping on. As always, you got any final thoughts?
No, man, just going to be digging into some Aaron Glenn defense here in a bit. I'm sure we'll talk.
For sure. That'll do it for us. Like, share, and subscribe. NY Flight Jets Talk Jets X Factor. That'll do it for us here on this Sunday afternoon. Robby Sabo, Connor Long signing off. As always, JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.